Hello, what is happening, you guys? Here we are today. So, I read a little book called Book Lovers. I'm sure you've heard of it a million times already if you're on BookTube. And if you haven't, you're probably living under a rock if you're interested in books because this has been everywhere lately and I finally got around to reading it. So, I'm really glad that I did. Really glad I checked it off my TBR. I have a few things to say about this one. So, this book is about two people involved in this is at least how it was sold to me. Let's just start with that. It was sold to me saying that it's about two people in the book publishing industry. I think one is a publisher, one is an editor. They both live in New York City, and one of them goes on vacation. Her name is Nora. She goes on vacation with her sister Libby to the setting of one of their favorite books where it took place. Like, for example, if Twilight took place in Forks, it'd be like going on vacation to Forks. And I think this is it's in North Carolina somewhere, I believe. Anyway, so they go on vacation there, and Nora runs into her, like, enemy or arch nemesis, however you want to put it. His name is Charlie. And he's like he's the editor, and I think she's the publisher. So they run into each other, and it's kind of like awkward, and they kind of start to text and flirt, and that's like kind of the setting that we're given. It's in this like vacation spot, I guess you could say, and that's really where it goes. And I don't want to give too much more away because that's how it's sold to you. That's how it was sold to me. This book was hyped up. Let me tell you, this book was hyped up. And that's fine, because there have been books that have been hyped up that I loved. Like, for example, It Happened One Summer, or It Ends With Us. Great freaking books. I loved those books. That just, a few examples. But there have also been some that have been hyped up that I've been like, but why was this so hyped up? And this may or may not be one of them. So I will say I'm going to give this book like 3.5 stars. It was an average book. Let me say, first off, this was sold as a romance between two people, Nora and Charlie. And now, telling you that, I mentioned earlier that Nora goes on this trip with Libby, her sister, because her sister clearly like has some issues and she's trying to sort them out, and they go on this trip together, and Libby's like pushing for this trip. I am telling you that this book very quickly turns into a Nora-Libby sister friendship dynamic entire story main plot, at least in my opinion. And I'm fine with a little bit of a subplot, but the romance became the subplot, and it more so became about the sister dynamic. Libby's going through something, we're trying to figure out what it is. That was like there was like a lot of what was going on, and no offense, but I wasn't interested in it, and that was really shoved into our faces as readers, so that's fine. I was reading reviews, and like some people were like, I was more interested in the sister story or whatever, and I was excited about it for that reason. And I'm like, okay, great, power to you, but I'm also entitled to not like it for the same reason. So I think that's kind of what it was for me. It was still fun, and the romance was okay. Like, again, it wasn't terrible. It's still like 3 stars, but I don't know. It was hyped up, and I kind of was expecting more out of it. I feel like that's kind of the best way I can put it. I did think it was really cool because in the book you find out that they were supposed to be the main characters, Nora and Charlie, end up like working together on a book, and it's kind of cool how they analyze it, and that part is really interesting as a reader. You get to hear them talk about like tropes and how they want their book to flow, and why you would want something to go before something else, or taking out certain parts of a book or putting them in, how they add to the story, like what's the end result, and things like that, which are cool to read about because we read and those things go on in our head all the time as readers. So that was really fun, and I did enjoy that. So that was a cool aspect. This was also my first Emily Henry book. I really hope she's the author. I don't have something with me right now to check it. It is Emily Henry. Okay, yeah, I'm remembering right. Anyway, so, and I don't know if like all of her books are like this, but so many people were like, it's her best book yet, and I still want to read Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation, so I still plan to read those, but maybe I'll go in with a lower expectation, and then I'll be, impressed and be like, oh, that was good. So, anyway, I'm probably going to keep this one pretty short, but yeah, it was okay. I just was like, honestly, I just wasn't interested in the sister friendship story. Sister whatever, I don't know, and like the twists that were like being built up to sort of were like kind of like deadpanned. I'm just saying, if you've read the book, they said that word a million times. Why did they say it so many times? They kind of deadpanned. I felt like I was like, okay, a little bit anticlimactic, but it was still. I still read it. I was still interested to read it. I felt like in the beginning of the book, it was more like the hook was in the book, and I felt the beginning was interesting, and I was getting pulled into it, and we were given some romance, but then it really just turned a lot into like Libby's story, and Nora was so concerned about Libby, and I was just getting so agitated with like how Nora was just so hyper focused on her sister, and I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody's family relationships are different, but just like the way it was going and the way it was like monopolizing the story for us, I wasn't interested in it. I was interested in the romance because that's what sold me on the book, was that this was going to be a great romance book. So it kind of like, I felt like steered off the path that I was anticipating in a way that I wasn't like, oh, that's a come up, like I'll just go with this instead. It was a storyline that I wasn't that intrigued by. Some people loved it, as I'm sure you've seen. There have been some great reviews, and that's awesome that those people did enjoy it, but I was just kind of like, it was okay. It was an average book, and I'm okay with that, but I'm going to give my honest review. So anyway, yeah, I'm sure you, like I said, I'm sure you've seen lots of great reviews, so I still, if you have heard those and you think you're interested in like hearing these other storylines or okay with the other storylines, then go for it, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you don't want to read it, that's okay too, but if you do, come back, please, and let me know what you think. And yeah, thank you for listening, and I'll see you for the next one.